When the city turned off our water this week, it was reinforced to us that the 1 gallon per person per day rule that some people use is survival math, and survival just isn't going to cut it. Today we're going to talk about why you need so much more water than you think you do, and we're going to show you 3 levels of preparedness, all the way from broke but brilliant to ready for anything.
Hey Provident Preppers, I'm Kylene.
And I'm Jonathan. Did you know that 71% of the Earth's surface is water? And none of it's carbonated. Does that mean the Earth is flat?
So bad, John. All joking aside, let's get started on our water storage. So this week we had quite the little wake-up call because the city shut off our water, and they did give us advance notice that this was going to happen because they were making some repairs.
Some of the city got noticed.
Yeah.
Turns out most of the city was affected, but only about a quarter of the city got notified. So there were a few problems, but I digress.
Okay, and John has this fabulous system in place now where we can have water running through our house and never, have issues with it. But we decided that we were going to go ahead and just do an experiment because being good preppers is all about practicing, right? We actually have to live the life and practice so that we can perfect our preps. So we were doing all the stuff like brushing our teeth and flushing the toilet with water. And the whole thing about if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. We were implementing all these practices. And we really came to realize that, just as we've always actually said, 1 gallon per person per day is not enough water. You may be able to live or survive, but not well, not well at all. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about the different purposes that you need water for and some of the things that we discovered.
So the first thing that we use water for, probably the most important, is hydration. We can't stay healthy if we're not hydrating. And for most people, that's at least 8 cups a day, half a gallon per day. For most of us, we should be up around 3/4 of a gallon, some up to a gallon. There goes our gallon right there, just for drinking.
One of the first things that when I went to brush my teeth at night, I always water pick, and that takes about 1.5 cups of water just for me to water pick and then to brush my teeth. And I'm like, wow, this is taking a lot of water. And then let's talk about washing our hands. That was another thing. I knew this was happening, so I needed to chop up a bunch of fruit to freeze dry. So I had washed it all before we knew the water was going to be shut out. But then I realized my hands weren't really clean because I'm only able to wash them with just a little bit of water. So in order to do the fruit, I had to wear gloves. Which is something we should always have in our storage. But if you are washing your hands 8 to 10 times a day, which you should be, that is a lot of water. And without a decent amount of water, they really can't get all the way clean. Food prep, talking about, the fruit, that's another thing. You need a lot of water, both to prepare your food and to clean up your meal.
And let's talk about another essential, toilet flushing.
John was super good. He prepared in advance, and he had jugs like this all lined up in our little toilet area so that we had flushing, but we were implementing the rule, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down.
Having that water that I could pour into the tank so that we could flush became pretty important. And we used maybe half of it. We didn't get through all of it, but having that water there and available was important.
And one of the things that we did when we were washing our hands, so we had these containers set up with they have these little spigots on them, right? We had them set up in our sink with a little basin to catch the water after we washed our hands so that we could use that to flush the toilet too, right? Yeah. Because you want to, every drop of water is precious. And so you really have to think ahead. Now let's talk a little bit about basic hygiene. We didn't do any laundry during this.
No.
We're taking sponge baths. We're not washing our hair. Big reality check. It takes at least 2 gallons per person per day in survival mode. I dare you, I double dog dare you to try it and report back and let us know how much water it took you to meet just your basic needs. And remember, some of us who have medical equipment, some of that distilled water and things, there's a whole nother thing you need to think about.
Our recommendation has always been to have at least 2 gallons per person per day for 2 weeks.
That's actually not true. Because you're
Tell
always
me.
you're always telling everybody, store as much water as you reasonably can, because you don't know how long the event's going to last, right?
Well,
That's
I want
Yeah.
more than that because I want to take good care of you.
Oh, there we go. Good answer, Johnny. Good answer.
So, yes, store as much as you can
But
so
a
that you can
minimum.
take care of those that you love.
But a minimum of 2 weeks. Okay, now one of the other things that happened to us when all this was going on, I was talking to John, I'm like, okay, so where do we go to get more? What are we gonna do when what we have runs out? And so we took a little drive.
It was good that we did. I'm glad that we did this little exercise because we had found a spot that was 2.25 miles away that I thought was our best option. As it turned out, when we got looking, there's another spot that's only a half-mile away that will serve us just as well. And so this little experimentation, and we encourage you to do the same. Go find where your nearest source of water could be.
And I think that's really important. And remember that wherever that source is, it's not just us that's going to be going there. It's all of our neighbors, everyone that we know. You've got to make sure that you have a primary source, but then you also need to have a backup in case it's crowded or contaminated or 100 other different things happen. So make sure you understand where you can get more water. But one of the best places that you can get water is actually by rainwater harvesting. Now, some of you are blessed to have a much greater rainfall than we do. Being able to just harvest some of that water that falls on your roof can make a huge difference as long as you have the ability to filter it and make it clean to drink.
There are some legalities with that, but if you have the ability to do that, rainwater harvesting is such a cool option. You'd be surprised how much you can get off your roof in a half-inch rainstorm, way more than you can fit in 2 or 3 water barrels.
Now let's talk about some non-negotiables. The first thing that's not negotiable is you need to store water. It is so important, period. No excuses, find a way to get it done. Start with whatever it is that you can afford, and we're gonna talk about that in just a minute. Some water, any water that you have stored is infinitely better than not storing any water. And one of the things we should talk about is water, if it's stored properly, it actually doesn't expire. And so make sure that we store it properly, but you're good to go.
And storing properly means storing clean water in a clean container and then storing it properly.
If you're storing water from a chlorinated municipal water supply, you are really good to go and you don't have to add anything, because when that comes out your faucet, the chlorine level should be a certain strength and that would be good enough to store. But if you're storing water that is from your well or a source that is not chlorinated, you're going to want to add a little bit of chlorine to make sure that you don't have critters growing in that water. It should be stored cool and dark if at all possible. And then we really think it's important to diversify your water storage because, okay, John is super strong, but if we have to evacuate and we need to take water with us, he's not gonna be able to throw that 250-gallon tank on his back and take it with us.
Yeah, I may not be able to anymore, but yeah.
There was a time when he could. But smaller containers could be really important. Now, we interviewed Emily, who is amazing about this whole situation, and we'll release that video at a later date. But one of the things that she talked about was she had some water stored, but she can't lift it. She can barely lift something like this. So think about what you can realistically do, and then store the water all over the place. So for Emily, it would have been great if she had some water stored right there in her bathroom, so that in order to take care of her needs, all she had to do was like open up underneath the bathroom sink and take it up. If you want to get Buster for us, would you?
Yes.
We just did a video on this. This is an emergency power outage kit, winter power outage kit. And there is a gallon jug of water in there so that it's always ready to go with all of the other supplies. And so think about that. Where would you possibly need the water? And it might be really nice to store some at the point of use.
Let's start in with broke but brilliant water storage. It's going to take a little bit of creativity and a little bit of sweat, but you can make this successful.
even without spending a lot of money. So just because you can't get the fancy stuff that John has waited all his life for and now has, doesn't mean you can't be safe and prepared for anything that happens. One of the easiest ways to do it is just to purchase ready-made containers that are already filled with water and stash them away. And they're actually not very expensive. One of the ones that we'd really recommend are these jugs that they're a harder plastic. There's a problem with these in that the plastic is super thin and they will leak, and they're not good for longer storage. There's a whole bunch of different containers that you can store your water in, and they're not very expensive. Sometimes when you store them in containers like this, space becomes more of an issue, but these will easily tuck in the bottom of closets or cupboards or all kinds of different places.
And I'm not really a big fan of bottled water, but it definitely has its place because it's easy to store. It's quick to grab if you need to throw some in the car and go. So it does have its place, definitely.
And knowing that you've just got that clean drinking water, right? It's already stored and ready to go. So it's not my favorite, but I'll tell you, we always keep several cases of these on hand, and we rotate through them. So there you go with that. There's all kinds of repurposed containers that you can use. Some of the best, like this container had apple juice in it, and it has this nice little handle, and we have got a lot of water stored in different things like this. You can use soda bottles, but the thing that you have to be really careful about is you've got to get them squeaky clean. So what we did is we'll wash them out really, really well, and then I'll put them in a sink that has a little bit of bleach in it and make sure that they're submerged and let them set and let that bleach have contact time. So good 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Then I'll pull them out and I will put them on a towel and kind of lean them up against the counter and let them air dry because I want that bleach to have that contact time. And then I'll fill it up from a chlorinated water supply. But the first time I do this, I will actually change out that water in about 6 months or so, because sometimes it's hard to get it all the way clean. And by letting that water set in it while and doing that first rotation, then you've got it covered. And when we moved here into this house, I had water in those jugs that had been there for 10 years. And we had to dump it out to move, and the water was still perfect. It was still really good. So just make sure that it's as squeaky clean as you can possibly get it. Another thing that you could use are repurposed glass jars. This was a pickle jar. It took a while to get the pickle smell out of it, but now it's good for a whole bunch of different things. If you take your canning jars, when they're not full of fruit, when you're not using them, and you just fill them with water, that's a great way. It takes no additional space, right? But if you actually water bath these, then the water inside is sterile and it's good forever. Some people will use bleach bottles or laundry soap containers. Those are never okay for potable water, for anything that you're going to drink. Those would be really good if you rinse them out really well for you to be able to use for toilet flushing water or hand washing, things like that. You could do that, but I wouldn't plan on drinking that.
Now, you can also find used 55-gallon barrels. The important thing you need to know is what was in that barrel before, and is it safe for me to clean that out and use it? You need to make sure you're storing them on a solid surface, concrete or whatever, with a pallet, so that you have a little bit of airflow around those. But they hold a lot of water in a fairly small space. You also need to make sure you have some way to get that water out, because it's not going to be real safe to try and tip that over and you're going to spill water everywhere. It's just a mess. So you need some nice pump system to be able to get that water out and be able to safely use it.
And one of the things that I don't like about that is that the pumps, it's a siphon pump, and we keep, because we've got water stored that way, but we keep the pump inside of a plastic bag so that it's clean, but you are sticking that entire pump in your water. So the risk of contamination is really high. If you want to learn more about storing water in a 55-gallon barrel, just click the card in the corner and we've got a video and we've got a post that will just walk you through the whole thing, how to clean it, what to put in it, and how to store it. So that's it. See, do you see how you don't have to spend much money to be able to store water? No excuses. Make sure that you're putting it in strategic locations and that you're ready, whether the city notifies you ahead of time that your water is going off or not.
So let's just do it so that we can take care of the ones we love. Let's move on to Battle Ready Water Warrior.
Now this storage is if you have a little bit of money, well, a lot of money to sink into your water storage. There's several reasons why you would want to do it, but most of all, it just takes it up a whole nother level. So we're going to talk about a few different things. These are aqua bricks. They are super sturdy. I mean, if I could lift it, you could throw this anywhere and it's not going to break. It does have a spigot that you can screw on these, but John, will you lay that down? I want to show them how it doesn't quite. Do you see what happens when that spigot can't
be laid flat?
It can't be laid flat.
Yeah.
And so like it's no big deal because we were using it over the sink, and so that's really handy. I wouldn't store it with the spigot on it, but if you are storing it with the spigot on it, I would always store these up like this. We haven't had any problems with this one leaking, but this kind of leaks with the spigot. Now this, we actually had it in the background there, and we had some of these in our sink too, and this was leaking. So you have to be careful, but these, you can pick them up actually fairly cheaply, and I would try and store them with the regular lid on them. I think you'd have less risk of contaminants. But one of the other things with these spigots is they're kind of hard to turn on and off. And that's really frustrating because when you're trying to wash your hands and save water, but it's hard to turn it on and off. So are they good? Yes. Are they as effective as I would want them to be? Maybe not, but it sure is convenient to have one of these right there so you're not having to use one hand to try and dump water over. There's some other things that are even better. Now, I will tell you, hands down, we are a fan of Rockwell water tanks. Like, they are amazing. The quality is incredible, but you will pay for that quality, but it's an investment. You invest once and you never have to do it again. They have what's called the Exodus. It's a 55-gallon tank for water instead of doing the 55-gallon barrel. This tank actually has a spigot on the bottom. So instead of sticking that pump inside and contaminating your water, you just have a spigot that opens, and it's not like these. It's a good quality one where you don't have any trouble leaking, and those tanks are stackable. So that's really nice. It means that you've got a whole lot of water in a very small footprint.
The next Rockwell tank that we like is the Galonzo, which is the 165-gallon. And again, they're stackable. So two of them, and you can't stack them more than two high, but 330 gallons. They each have two spigots, one high, one low. So you can use whichever spigot's going to work best for you. And they have a key so that the grandkids can't go in and turn it on and cause all kinds of mayhem.
But they're really good quality. And in fact, if you click the card in the corner, we've got a video of our installation of the Galonzo tanks that we have downstairs. And I love them. And that was one of the things about getting the notification from the city. It was like, oh, this is going to be like a pain, but it's no big deal. One of the other things that we have with our tanks is a little filter so that we can just screw it on and filter the water as it comes out of those tanks, so that we make sure that our water is clean no matter how long we left it in the tank and didn't rotate it. Rockwell also makes something called quake tanks that are 250 gallons. That is a lot of water. And we're gonna segue a little bit into our next section and talk about those. So John, you are in the third category, which is a ready for anything, probably over prepped, have a backup for your backup for your backup kind of guy.
And we could also name this, instead of ready for anything, taking care of your wife. No matter what happens, for how long. I know, I got a water problem, I'm addicted.
But he'll never hear me complain about not having water.
Exactly, water is so critical to our lives in so many ways, and we're so spoiled because we just go to the tap and turn it on and water's there most of the time.
So I have to tell you this story. Jonathan and I are at this emergency preparedness meeting, right? I think we were presenting. And there was this guy who came up and talked about his water storage. His name is Chris. And John was just like salivating. And we went to his house and explored his system. We created a whole video on it. Chris's inline water system. You want to tell him about it? And this is who John patterned our system after.
I hadn't seen this. I'd thought about it. And I thought, okay, that's probably not real easy to do. It turns out it's very easy to do. He had two 250-gallon tanks, and then just all the equipment to connect them together, the pump to pump it into a system, and the plan all set up so He just turns the valves he needs to turn to put that system into play. And he rotates it on a fairly regular basis, just uses it like normal because it goes through the entire house just like your normal utility water.
Yeah, so it's isolated. You turn it, you fill it up and you turn it off, and you're using your city water. Then when you want to use it and rotate it, you turn off the city water and turn on this system. So it's a great, super easy way to keep it all rotated, and you can also get a really good handle on how long that's gonna last. And there are some drawbacks, like if I'm washing my hands and the water's coming out of the sink, I'm probably gonna use a lot more than if I'm washing my hands with this, but highly convenient. And so that's why Jonathan had to have this system.
We went for 3 tanks, each 250 gallons, and it turned out to be fairly easy to put together. I was a little nervous because we had to cut into our house line, our main house line. That freaks me out. But my son had done all this kind of stuff before, and we were using PEX, and PEX, I've just come to love using PEX because it's so reliable, it's so easy to use. And so putting this together was really fairly easy. We did have to go buy the pump. The pump was fairly expensive, but it just makes this system really nice. We can turn it on whenever we need it or whenever we want to rotate it. We can use it, and then we refill the system, and we're back to having that just in reserve.
If you click the card in the corner, we'll take you to a video that shows John's system. But the most important thing is that you store water, whether you're storing it in these or repurposed gallon jugs or anything that you can do. Just make sure that you are storing water. Now, there's a couple things we should talk about. One is that if you are doing it like this, you probably should label and date it so that you know how old the water is and you know when it needs to be rotated. Keep a little list of where all your water sources are, because when we were talking to Emily and interviewing her, one of the things is that she forgot she had some water in different places in her house. And so that would be really important to really know where all of that is. Test and practice. Like seriously, I promise, if you are using your water, if you turn off your water and you try and live on a gallon a day, you're gonna go, I totally see why Kylene says you have to have at least 2 gallons, because 1 is really, really, really tough. Keep the tools that you need right where you're going to use them, because like if you've got the 55-gallon barrels, you've got to have a bung wrench to open that. Yeah. If you don't know where your bung wrench is, that water is useless. So personally, I say the bung wrench stays right there with the water barrel. The pumps, I have bags on them, and they're stored right behind the water barrel. That is their home, so that everything is all together whenever I need it, and I don't have to try and remember where I stored what. Start today, guys. No matter how you do this, Rockwell Water is a fantastic place. We've got a promo code. We'll leave it in the description that you can get a discount. But even at that, it is definitely an investment. And for us, an investment worth making. But right now, you've got to do whatever you can do just to get water in your home so that you're ready for anything.
Now for the question of the day. Tell us about your water outage stories.
Your water woes.
Yeah, your water woes. What happened and how did you deal with it? And what did you learn? That's probably the most important. Drop these comments down and let's talk about them. Let's have some discussion so we're all smarter. Thanks for being part of the solution.